This is a continuation of a regularly scheduled meeting of the Sunderland Board of Selectmen. We actually started tonight at 6 p.m. downstairs with executive session specifically around negotiations contract with police chief. We returned here in open session after our election last week. I'm sorry, this Saturday. The first order of business in open session is going to be the board's reorganization, and this happens every election cycle, and it's a good thing.
So I guess I will take nominations for chair. Come on, nominations for chair.
Smiling. There's no audio issues now, it's just dead quiet.
Yeah, I know, right?
Nominations for chair.
Dead air, the bane of...
Nominate Tom Biden-Kevitz.
Second.
Any other nominations? If no other nominations?
I would say Richie Wheeler. But
Okay. If no other nominations, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You can do it.
Okay.
it's hard voting for oneself, Margaret.
I know. Would you like me to continue with vice chair and clerk?
Yes, please.
Okay. Nominations for vice chair?
Nominate Dave Pierce.
Second.
Any other nominations? If no
Nominations
other,
closed.
nominations are closed. No other nominations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then finally for clerk?
Nominate Scott Bergeron.
Second.
And, well, that pretty much takes care of everybody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
wanna run the
that's it.
meeting?
It's official.
That's good.
Okay. Tom was reelected for fifth term? Sixth term. And for those people who went out and supported all of the ballot, as well as the ballot question, which we'll talk about later in the meeting, I want to thank them. You know, that election process is a cornerstone of the participation. So, that said, we're going to continue on tonight, have a Board of Selectmen's updates, Town Administrator update. We have an appointment, designee, and goals for a collaborative fire shared services working group. Richie, that's appropriate. There's a collaborative fire working group designee. That's exciting. And then we're going to talk about some fiscal realities correspondence. I love the title about that. We have a one-day liquor license policy request and amendment as well.
Yeah.
Okay. First, we could talk about the minutes or review the minutes of April 28th.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded for the 28th of April. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0, please. Okay, board updates. You want to weigh in first for the things we've worked on, or talk about the election in general?
At the present time, Scott, the South County EMS is up and running for the 18 hours a day, 17 hours, whatever it is. I just talked to Bobby, who's the chair of the Board of Oversight, and I guess it's running and it's doing okay, and that's what we needed it to do, so.
I've seen it driving through town here.
I saw it in action in Deerfield the other day, so.
It,
Yeah.
and it had to, we had to start, I mean, we talked about it for a long time. It needed to start, it did start. I'm sure Zach is working through scheduling issues and all that kind of other good stuff, but it started.
That went live on the 1st, right, wasn't it?
What's that, Dave?
Did it go live on the 1st, was it? May 1st?
It started
Like the
May
service,
1st, yes. Yeah. So it's been up and running, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, they are making calls. Deerfield Ambulance is coming. Deerfield, which is now the South County Ambulance, is coming to Sunderland. We have a meeting Thursday night. We will, the Board of Oversight does, and we'll just address the issues one at a time. I mean, there's a very good group of people on the on the thing. I think Zach is very qualified for the directors. We'll just work through any issues that come up, so. Now you have, town of Sunderland residents have paramedic service readily available, so that's a good thing.
If you think about that, as a, it's been described as the soft rollout or soft start of a, a business. We lose sight of we should not lose sight of the fact that this is an increase in both the type of coverage and the duration that coverage is available. And that is just paramount, and we should all be thankful for the work people put in on that. So, either with respect to board updates?
Margaret sent out a thing, or there was a email today about the bulky item day that's coming up.
Yes.
For the
Oh, yes.
Franklin,
New location.
so the Franklin,
At Mohawk, right?
well, the Franklin Regional Waste District, which Sunderland is a part of it, on May 17th,
Yes.
which is a Saturday.
Yeah.
There is a bulky item day that's gonna be held, that people can take, a multitude of items, couches, mattresses, tires, appliances, building material, monitors, TVs, console TVs, flat screen TVs, computers, whatever you have, except
Mattresses.
for, they're not taking paint or hazardous materials. You can go over to Whately, we can go to Whately, to the Whately Highway Department outside of that, and you can drop it off. There is a fee, and fees are, like appliances cost like $20, a mattress is $25, box spring $25, TVs, bicycles, whatever. There is a fee, and you can go on the webpage,
Solid waste.
www.franklincountywaste.org or something like that.
Just search on Franklin County Solid Waste District.
Yeah, you're not gonna get a lot of hits on that.
Yeah.
There's only a certain ones, yeah.
So if you do Franklin County Solid Waste District on Google or Yahoo or Bing or whatever, it'll take you there. And
I'll put something on the town's website too, I'll put a link.
it's got, and it has all the prices.
Yeah, there it is.
But it is a pretty, it's actually pretty affordable. It will be on Saturday, May 17th.
Yep, right on the first thing on their webpage, right on the front.
Yeah.
Let's see, the price list and et cetera comes up.
The price list will come up in a spreadsheet form and it has everything there.
Perfect. Yeah, they got a whole list of things to do, so,
Oh, little pictures too.
and pictures too. Very good. We continue with police negotiations again this Thursday morning. That process is coming along. We have covered a fair amount of ground, and we continue to work toward getting that closed up here before the fiscal year starts. I think that's it with respect to me. Anything, David? If not, we'll go to,
Yeah, I think I'm good.
we'll go to town administrator updates.
You're going to talk capital as a different subject, correct? Okay, so town administrator updates, really the only thing I have is that the House voted its budget this past week, and the projected revenues that the town had have not changed one bit. In fact, the estimated excess levy capacity the town has remains at $51,588. So no change yet. We still have a ways to go before the state's final budget comes out, but keep you posted.
2 more months, probably.
Yeah, 2 more
Yeah.
months.
Maybe we should, with the selectmen's updates with respect to capital, we can talk a little bit about the ballot question that passed. I think that ballot questions are always difficult, as someone who's been through a fair amount of them. I would be remiss if we didn't thank people who were took the initiative and passed that capital stabilization override, understanding for the people who may question its value or frankly not support it. This board certainly recognizes, and I'm sure future boards will recognize, the due diligence required to continue to bring a realistic capital budget to town meeting, which is still the appropriating body, and to continue to be responsible about any distribution of town-raised monies. This is a serious business, and again, for those who did support it, I thank you. And in the next few years, we should see a little bit of easing of the pressure on some of our capital needs. But again, that's not without due diligence and not without due respect for the fact that, this body and every department that puts in for it has to be respectful of where that money comes from and how it's used. We have, of course, the ballot question was in front of us. The ballot question is passed. The question was raised today about the things that can be used under that capital stabilization statute. Margaret pulled out that General Law 5921C. We also have what was the capital plan in front of us. That's important that this doesn't go into effect immediately. Of course, elections have to be certified. They have to be vetted and reviewed, and the ballot question for content. But, Margaret, in talking with DOR, upon that being certified, is it the September rate that's put on? Because we're split now. It's the estimated.
If the board appropriates to excess levy capacity for FY15, it would be reflected in the coming year's tax rate.
Okay.
Yes. The estimated tax rate, I would have to check with the assessors, but definitely the actual, just as the debt payoff is going to come. The board's responsibility is to appropriate the additional levy capacity. Town meeting's responsibility is to appropriate the funds from capital stabilization for the specific capital items. So, and as far as capital items goes, people may be asking about the definition of capital items for the capital stabilization override. The town accepted or established the capital stabilization fund to, the exact wording is, to establish a special purpose stabilization fund to be known as the Capital Stabilization Fund for Municipal Capital Purchases included in Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8. Those are full lists of what the town can borrow for, can incur debt for. So it's very comprehensive. It would include many, many, many things. So
we have actions in front of us between now and July 1st?
yeah, there can be action items. The town cannot spend a penny of, July 1st is the effective date. But town meeting, things like the board could review the capital plan, start identifying capital projects. Town meeting could even be held prior to July 1st. It's just that every vote would have to be effective July 1st or later.
Got it.
Okay.
Tom, I raised the question because in our when we were discussing capital and the appropriate use of capital for the annual town meeting warrant, one of the areas that came up was about the engineering money for the Phase 2 studies of North Main Street. Again, we're involved in a TIP. It's called a TIP, and it's a cool acronym, but the commitment was to take some more monies, town appropriated monies, toward engineering, and that shows a measure of commitment, if you will.
Right, so
Skin in the
project.
game, call it what it is, right?
Yep.
And it seemed, Tom, that having missed the potential to miss that opportunity actually pushes our project farther out in the queue. And that would on the surface, and we'll have the discussion about it, on the surface, one of the first things in my mind we would want to leverage capital stabilization for. Now, I asked, and we can use capital stabilization based on the statute that we cited for engineering work.
Engineering work for the road construction, yes.
Discussion amongst the board. Again, we're not cherry picking any projects right now, but I think it's important to have that out there, Tom. You used the word leverage a fair amount last time.
I think one of the things that, Scott, that you're looking at, I'm trying to look up the section right now.
Yep.
But you have to, I think we need to read the definition very carefully about when you use the money, if you don't use the full 100,000. So I think we have to come up
Come up with real guidelines for.
Very important, because it's important also to know, The board can appropriate any amount up to the $100,000 in the first year. Whatever the board appropriates to excess levy capacity, or to additional levy capacity in the first year, the town is then limited in the following year to that amount plus 2.5%. Very important that very important for the town to have a plan.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So we have homework to do here over the next couple of meetings about some consensus for the use of that declaration of use of our excess. Okay.
I can certainly check the items that are on the capital plan currently, all the way through the 5-year plan,
Yep.
and make sure that all the items, or which items would qualify.
Actually, that's a really important point, Margaret, just because
double
we
check.
define capital as a dollar value or a life cycle, doesn't mean that the statute that town meeting adopted,
Right.
they fit the same bill.
Yep.
Great points. So again, we can bring that forward over the next couple of meetings and have this wrapped up, so we go in and through June, and we don't miss either a time mark or one of the town's goals. Okay. The discussion with respect to capital or the election? Capital stabilization? Okay. If not, collaborative fireworking group. We had met with the town of Leverett 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago, and talked about the basic needs of small communities with volunteer or stipend compensated call forces, and some of the administrative needs that go on with these departments, inspection services, regulations, permits, etc. And there was genuine general enthusiasm about finding some common ground. And that common ground is, instead of duplicating our services across two towns, which are, minutes from each other, is there a way we can share our services, collaborate on those services? Our chief here was in the room, nodding his head, hoping to be appointed to that group because he doesn't have nearly enough to do already.
Exactly. Not busy enough with the other one.
Exactly.
EMS.
But there are a couple of names and a couple of charges, that was our homework. I'd given Margaret a name, I'd reached out to a resident, not heard back from the resident, I will reach out one more time. But if there are names that come to mind, maybe we can get them either at the end, before this meeting is over, so we can notify Leverett and get some meetings set up. 2 or 3 people, at least to start. Right, the fire chief is a natural grouping. There are a couple of, if the legislation passes, there will be another near septuagenarian who could maybe work on that,
Yep.
right? And then maybe someone with some fiscal responsibility, whether it's a member of the finance committee or somebody that's not associated directly with public
Fire.
safety.
Yep.
What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Scott. I mean, get a couple, diverse people from across, spectrum, sure.
Okay, so the goals, I think I had given Margaret 3 that came to mind for me right off the bat.
I put
One
those
was
in.
identify, it was on chicken scratchings on the edge of a piece of paper.
It's in the minutes
Okay,
now.
It's in the minutes now, okay. And again, some of those were, what are the common goals, or common needs identified, developed, right, identify
Identify
some
common-
common needs, develop 3 tasks, because again, this is both strategic, but there's some immediate need. It'd be nice to be able to celebrate a small success, What are 3 immediate needs, 3 tasks, areas you can have a short action on, and then a framework for an IMA or the type of services that we're looking to share. And that's both broad, but the number 2 point allows something to get done in relatively short order.
Right.
And you keep momentum if it can be developed. Anything else we should add to that?
No, I think that's good.
That's good.
Okay. So we get names. Again, I reached out to a resident, I can say the name here, the part-time firefighter and part of the force, as well as a member of the finance committee, so hopefully we get an answer back.
So for the next meeting?
I would hope that we would have that to our office tomorrow, so that we can notify these people, so we can notify Leverett that we're really serious.
Okay.
Okay, we have correspondence. I love the title of, It's the fiscal realities correspondence, or the FRC, as they say in the business.
FRC.
The FERC.
So at our last meeting, it was pretty clear coming off of the annual town meeting, where our future free cash estimates can be. We can get pretty darn close to it right now, based on the amount that was appropriated, the amount that was reserved, and the amount that was actually allowed to move through for the upcoming year. And the board had asked for a basic correspondence outlining the challenge for the upcoming year very early in the process. In particular, the two school districts, as well as some of our department heads. And frankly, I put this out in front of the board, our legislators should know this goes on at this level very early on. They deliberate a big budget that oftentimes seems polar opposite of where our budgeting lies. And they're with respect to revenues and how those revenues are apportioned. I wouldn't mind having this correspondence go to both Stan and Steve as well, and frankly, maybe even the Office of Finance and Administration. They actually make the suggestions, do a bunch of the legwork. So I put that out there. I think the correspondence reads very practically speaking. There are real numbers to it. Talks from 2009 all the way through 15. Talks about next year's potential growth. Talks about the cap that we have on our 2.5, and some of the recent history with respect to increases from assessments, whether they be education or COG assessments. And then the last paragraph talks to regional transportation, reimbursements, Chapter 70, pilot money, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's well crafted, and if there's any reason that we need to tweak it, if we get it back to the office again as early as tomorrow, what's tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, we can get this out. I think there's the final paragraph actually makes a great deal of sense, and is, do we actually start some discussions soon? Face-to-face discussions
Soon and frequently.
I'd almost recommend too that this be essentially a procedural thing each year that we do this, because and I'd also, they're not here tonight, but I think we ought to shoot this out to the media as well, because I think the more that these types of discussions get out there, because clearly we're not the only municipality facing these issues and these budgetary strictures. And I think it also acts as a very good, because it doesn't get into, for lack of a better word, it doesn't get into politics. This is strict budgetary numbers, and here's the framework where we have to then go and take those discussions going forward into the year.
Right.
And I'm hoping that it's effective in addressing the bigger picture stuff as opposed to just,
Right.
suffering one year, this happened to us this year, therefore, the town has to act. This is the bigger picture, this is year on year, this is long-term, this is sustainability or unsustainability.
Right, and this is something that
Challenges.
we have to, getting it out there too, it allows us to address the issue with, the groups that are part of Frontier, all of the associated towns and where they stand on it as well.
That's a great point.
It's a very important thing to foster the communication and stop acting quite like individual little islands that kind of only come together occasionally, Sort of like, orbiting planets that line up once in a while, we need to kind of get together a little more on it.
It'd be nice to have that. It will be nice when that dialogue is not based on a common need, but on a series of common goals.
Right.
Not a common crisis. It's not all of our ships sinking. It should be all of our ships floating.
Exactly, and where we're headed.
Right. Tom, you want to weigh in?
I think we should do it soon, because in years past, we have sent out similar letters, and we've been told, well, we don't know where we're at right now.
Good point.
And
That's a really good point, actually.
my point is that you may not know where you're at, but we know where we are at. And
And where you've been. They know where they've been.
We're just trying to figure out where we're going.
And I would say, knowing what I know, is that our problem, I think, people have or committees, and it's not just this past year, but it's been for many years, that they didn't know. And we need to address it straight up.
Yep.
And I would say waiting until November or December is too late.
Yeah.
So I would say, I would like to send it out soon, so that we can set up a meeting soon to address it. The other thing is, I understand, my first thought was it was important to send to Steve and Stan, and it's still, I still think it is, but I think we should write them separately discussing how state funding has changed and directly affects us. And I don't think that's a tough letter. Because if you look at education, and at this, Margaret may want to talk to Marty Barrett and Patty Kavanaugh from the school to help. But I mean, if you just purely look at the numbers of where we were in 2009, what we were getting from the state, and what we're getting now from the state, people would be very surprised. And again, like I said at the town meeting, we spend way too much time beating ourselves up and not looking at some of the underlying concerns that we have.
Well, I mean, it just like this letter, it's a strictly numbers-based discussion. It's not, the numbers are what they are. And you gather up those numbers and look and say, here's what's going on, and you can look at the trajectory where it's going.
And you don't want to, I would suspect that the goal is to simply present them as a fact basis, not use this as anything more than that. It's not a
Right.
policy, it's not a political statement.
No.
No.
Good point.
This letter shouldn't be, but a letter to our legislators
Should be. I was actually,
And you can't say that your top priority is education when we have numbers that would suggest otherwise.
right.
And it wasn't too long ago, they used to come, that they would come and sit at our meetings. They haven't for a while, and maybe that's our fault. Maybe we need to invite them again.
Yep.
But, and maybe that's one way to do it, says, we can address these issues, we can write this letter, talk about, and I think Margaret would have an easy time writing this letter. And send it to us, like, we need to discuss these things.
We roll that up, Tom, and have the Franklin County Selectmen's Association adopt that as well? I know it's a bigger bailiwick, it's not necessarily this group, but
Yeah, we can, Scott.
It's
We
worth bringing
can,
up.
but I think boards, I think, yeah, we can do that, but I think that sometimes also, we lose our voice because we're a board of three, and we represent 3,700 residents, and I think sometimes legislators, that sometimes you take certain things for granted.
right. No, you raise a good
You
point.
know, and so I would say you're right in a way that, if you get a larger group that's speaking in unison, I'm sure we can probably come up with all kinds of numbers from all the other towns.
Right.
And maybe, and Margaret, maybe you can talk to other town administrators that you know, and that belong, and maybe that's something that we can discuss at our e-board meeting.
Yep.
Well, you can almost come up with
Bring
a
it.
framework, like a template, essentially.
That's a good
And
point.
work
I
from
don't,
that.
I don't think it's hard.
No.
Probably get most of it right from the DLS website.
Well, that's it.
It's all there.
As I started pouring over these numbers, I just went out and I got it all from the website. I mean, it's all available, so
Interesting.
it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like shame on us if we don't follow up on it and address it in that sense.
With respect to this correspondence,
is fine.
having read it twice now, I don't really have any issue with sticking the letterhead to it, putting the name on it, and shipping it. But with that said, maybe requesting of meetings coming up in very short order. We're done with town meeting season, the administration, the two regional districts are done with town meeting season, nearly done with town meeting season. It's time to have that infamous June meeting we've always talked about.
Well, I would say, Scott, I don't have a problem. I agree with you with what you're saying, but I would send a side letter
Yeah.
to the area, the departments that have, over the last period of time, have had real growth.
Right,
We should send a side letter asking them to sit down and talk.
directly, yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Yep. Okay, so is there, again, that's an action with respect to this letter. Any reason not to put the titles on and send this out?
No.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0, please. And again, thank you, Margaret. That's, again, it's not too salty and it's not too sweet. It's just where it should be,
Actual.
right? Okay. We have an amendment for the senior tax write-off procedure in front of us. And I see
Yes, one simple.
italics here.
Yes, I
on
underlined
board
it.
before, Yeah.
It required applicants for the coming program year to apply by September 1st in order to qualify to work in the coming program year. But we have applicants all the time that actually, some have, some have qualifications or experience in certain areas that could allow them to work in a current program year. So I would suggest, I would recommend the language be changed to allow applications to come in on a rolling basis beginning September 1st through the coming program year.
And we set and that's, it's not gonna matter because we set aside a sum of money anyways for that.
That's right, that's right. We have the maximum built in there. And the assessors will likely have a cutoff for, a cutoff
That
to
year.
calculate the tax credit for that year. And that's fine, but this will allow us to kind of open up the application process a little more.
Okay. Motion.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to amend the senior citizens property tax work-off program. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, please. Get the amendments. This is our first amendment to this policy?
Yes.
Not bad, 2010?
It works, Scott.
No,
It works.
by all measures, it works quite well.
It works, man.
Okay, we have there was a question about Fall Festival appointment versus a Fall Festival volunteer, and we have confirmation. Would
Yes.
actually like to be part of an official type deal, as it says in the top sentence. So this is Brenda Wozniakevich's appointment for the Fall Festival Committee. This will be inside of our, well, I guess it begs the question, do we wait for the regular annual appointments, or do we do an interim, just a point away? Okay.
Motion.
Yeah. Second.
Motion's made and seconded to appoint. All those in favor?
Aye.
And 3-0, please. And thank you, Brenda. Again,
Yes.
all the volunteers help a great deal. And looks like lastly, we have
One more small amendment.
Policy amendment.
policy amendment.
What is that?
This is at the top. It looks like it's liquors for the sale of.
Yep.
Yeah. It's, the only change here on this policy is to reference that Chapter
I like that,
138,
yeah.
Section 14 is for special licenses for the sale of alcoholic beverages.
So we've had events come forward. It's like the BYOB thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
BYOB or service.
Or service, where there's no sale of it. Now, the questions come up, we have a one-day liquor license, there's a check, there's a fee, there's a follow-up with public safety, I get all that. I'd like to ensure that the BYOB or service, there's still some measure of the town being notified that an event like that, is particular, a request, town park event or something,
Yeah.
at least we're notified.
And the town park waiver, the town park application form actually has the waiver of liability for the town. It has all of that built in. I think I actually have a copy.
And this is consistent with statute? We're not reinventing the wheel or putting anything too onerous on?
This is absolutely consistent with statute. That statute is for special licenses for the sale of alcoholic beverages. That's what it is.
Almost brings it a little more in line with it. in that
I know,
sense.
and
Oh,
frankly,
saw you-
I requested the amendment just to make sure that it's clear
Last-
from,
We had an application not too long ago, and it's like, why are we getting an application for something that's,
Right, you're not
they're
selling
not
it.
charging money for?
Right.
and frankly, I was, even going back to the policy, I was unclear, and I said, it would be nice to have this written in, because when you refer to the black and white, you can always know what the directive, so.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. This is an amendment to our one-day liquor license policy. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0. 3-0, please. Okay. So again, we started this evening in 6 PM in executive session. That was announced. It's on the agenda. Again, that was only with respect to the police chief's contract that we're negotiating. Is there any other updates or discussion?
The board will have the summer schedule for the next, to vote on your next meeting, on the
Okay.
12th.
Well, as this.
I don't really
It's
pay
coming-
a lot of attention
Memorial
to 'em,
Day is
'cause,
right
like,
around
last
the
year, it was
corner.
like, well, we just went through every week, multiple
exactly.
meetings during the week,
As
so
soon as we
whatever.
set the summer schedule, it went to
Yeah,
4 meetings a week.
exactly.
It was like, oh, good.
There wasn't.
Yeah, that's all right.
Well, very good then. I'd like to take, if I could, just a very brief moment to say is, this is one of those rare opportunities as a departing chair in particular to thank not just the board, FCAT, but also the people in our office, Margaret in particular, for the due diligence, the clarity of thought, and the occasional frustrated phone call, depending on who's calling. Sometimes it's a member of the board, sometimes it's the office. It's been a true treasure and honor to work as chair with this body, so thanks so much. That said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
3-0, please. You can call us out at 7:43.
To that.
Well, you've been meeting.